In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. Our first, so I'm not sure how much we're actually going to handle outside of executive session at this point. How much can we talk about on item 2 before executive session?
So 2 and 3 are the same thing.
Okay.
And so we can do it outside of executive, quite honestly. You want to do that one right now?
Yeah, we'll handle that. And all right, so item 2 is temporary work arrangement for the Sheriff's Department Jail Division.
So on this issue, we have a jail lieutenant who's retiring, who does some critical work involving stuff outside of my world, some IT stuff for the assistance of the jail, and they would like to continue some of that work. And there's 2 ways to do that. We can do a temporary employment agreement, but the state is Kentucky, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So the foreign state is Kentucky. I took an overview just to see, working with HR, just to see generally what sort of requirements we would have if we're an employer in Kentucky. And I know that there's some stuff that we would need to look in further, and we would have to hire somebody. My recommendation would be to hire somebody from Kentucky to tell all of us what we need to do to operate as an employer in Kentucky. That's an expense to the county and the auditors here. They won't like that so much either. So that's option 1. Option 2 is an independent contractor agreement. We've done those in the past. However, this year the rules have changed slightly. The IRS is looking at independent contractors differently. One flag is when you go from full-time employee to independent contractor, big red flag. So you want to make sure it's something like what you see out on the street, that an individual, they've got a shingle out there and they're doing their own thing. You want those sorts of services. Those fit within an independent contractor. I talked with the captain. We kind of tooled down some of those duties to what I think will work. It's outside of my expertise regarding specifically, but I think we can get it through as an independent contractor. It's probably less desirable by less as undesirable by the auditor, but probably not as much extra work to do that. But there is some risk that if we're wrong on an independent contractor agreement, that there is some risk that we have to pay him as an employee and all the penalties associated with it. But after talking to the captain, I think we can do it with, I don't know, I would say 90%. I'm 90% sure that we're operating lawfully doing that. There is just some risk.
How long are we talking? We're not talking years. We're talking months.
No, we're talking, our plan is through the end of fiscal year 25, so end of September, and it's very specific. Jail, IT, support, Spillman, and CoreTrack, and the systems that we had named a successor. However, the successor, which is Sergeant Allen, been back there, hasn't been trained fully, and Lieutenant Peterson left in the end of October. Mm-hmm. And right now we're operating without the continuity of some of these systems that he did, and we're just scraping by right now, and we're just trying to have him as a resource we can reach out to and help train and continue some of these processes, getting information for like the ISA inspections, the marshal's inspections, and some of these other things that he's always done that we need somebody to do.
So for 9 months, is he only responding to our needs, or is he being paid monthly?
No, we'll set a weekly or paycheck schedule on what we need. He'll be responding to our needs, but also help training Sergeant Alleman and then Sergeant Fulcher if he needs for jail-specific Spillman stuff. It's not just going to be a carte blanche. You know, you're sitting at home for 40 hours a week getting paid even though you're not doing anything. We'll have a schedule worked out depending on which way we end up going with this.
Okay. And this is from the temporary seasonal hires.
Yes,
okay. Bill, any questions?
Well, I have a question. I wanted to ask HR generally, how many people do we have working at home currently?
Bill, this is Sylvia, and in terms of staff that are working at home, it's, we don't have a specific number because the departments and the electeds don't have to turn it in to us, but I would say there isn't a substantial amount working from home. Now, in terms of if you're interested in like independent contractors, we only have one that I'm aware of at this point. We had a couple of them and they've expired, so we have one that will complete their term at the end of this year.
Okay, because I'm concerned that we have people working all over the country, if you will, for Kootenai County being paid as though they were here, or even more. And go ahead.
Sorry about that, Bill. We do not now. Our staff that live in Washington, they can do up to 24 hours a week. Like I think there's some arrangement in community development, but we're like, and it may not be even 24 hours. I'll have to go back and check that amount, but the majority of the time they have to be here to be considered our employee versus working in another state. And we can do that with Washington because of the relationship we have with them. And we did some real firm checking and vetting of that process. And then Kentucky does collect income tax, so that would not work for us because we're not an employer there. So we wouldn't want them to be our staff. We would really have to go into that extensive research to be an employer out of state. So that is the...
What about California?
That individual is on an independent contract. And that ends at the...
Oh, we only have one?
Correct.
We have one and it ends December of 25 because we did not want to be an employer in California.
Okay, thank you very much.
So if the board's looking for a recommendation from me, it is definitely the independent contractor because of all the extra work, and it's not going to be as helpful for the jail to do that because we're going to tailor down some of those duties, but it just is what it is.
Thoughts?
But we do need direction.
I have questions. First one is, does it make a difference if they're a proprietor or an LLC?
It does not.
Okay. Does it make a difference if they've officially retired and then come back afterwards as an independent contractor?
So it doesn't. It's really the work and our control of the work that matters. So if it's somebody where we're managing every aspect of what they do, they're more like an employee. If they're like a lawyer, it's much easier to go from a full-time employee to an independent contractor because there's no control of what the attorney does. It's a professional job, and there's really no, hey, I want you to move that brick from there to there. So we go from extremes, brick to brick, to lawyer independent judgment.
Yeah, and so in this case, we're just giving them workload once a week, and we're not telling them they have to be there at 9 or until 5 or anything like that.
Right, and it's very narrow to the professional stuff of, hey, I'm going to train you on this area that I have expertise in, but I'm not going to manage you. That's not my job. That's your employer's job. So we're going to have to peel that stuff out, that they can't be doing any management stuff, which is typical of a lieutenant's a manager. We're going to peel out the management stuff and just do the specialized
So I
stuff.
see where you're going with the 90% then.
Yeah, there's a small risk, and it's only 9 months, which cuts in our favor.
But if they were to get another client, for example, then it would clearly be.
Clearly be, yes.
Okay. And this person understands they're responsible for their both sides of their FICA and...
I haven't talked to them.
Okay.
Yes.
But they know.
Yeah.
They're not employed. It's not. Yeah. And then the only other thing is I just saw a date of 10/1/2025. We want it to end on 9/30.
Yeah.
2025.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Yep.
So, so it sounds that go ahead and draft the agreement and we can handle it on a business meeting.
Very good.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right, so that takes care of item 3 as well. And so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for item 1.
I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061B.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. And Bill, we'll call you right back.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It is 10:38.
I move that we exit executive session 1B with staff to proceed, as discussed.
Second.
Bill Brooks.
Bill, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Commissioner Matari.
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. Public comment. Anybody online, Jonathan? Okay. 10:38 still. Meeting adjourned.